Stand Tall, Walk Free. We're going to interview about some of the things that you talked about the police when he said it was staged. Do you remember? His name was Henry. I know the first name was Henry. Tell the audience what he said.
He said my husband's accident was staged.
And he was in the city of Alameda?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do when he said that?
There's nothing I could do. I was
stunned?
I wasn't surprised, but I was glad he told me that. That told me that something happened to very bad happened to my husband.
So if he said it was staged, that would mean that Pat Wyatt had something to do with it, with the dog, right?
Yes.
And that had a lot to do with the chief of police, Bernie Matthew, at the time, right?
Yes, and the officer that told me, Henry, I have a picture of him with one of the cadaver dogs, too. So I think they use the dogs to attack people. I think that's why they have the dogs, to attack people.
I see. So that means a lot when you're talking about the dogs and all that, because it makes a lot of sense. A lot of times the dogs are trained to act.
Kill.
Well, mainly to attack.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to kill, but to attack if the officer tells them to attack.
Right.
So that is something to think about, what happened on May 11, 1998. Also, I would like to talk about another subject. The cola darts. You know, she ran for mayor in the city of Alameda, but then after she got all that property, and whose property was that?
Gertrude Carl.
Well, she seemed to disappear. And it seemed to me that the gym is still operating in the city of Alameda, and that you said the police officers go to the gym, right?
Yes.
So it seems like there's a connection in the gym with the officers going to the gym.
Yes.
And there needs to be a lot of cleanup, especially with what's going on with Alameda. Now, everything has seemed to be silent. Now, there was a news article in the Express Times in Alameda. They talked about Gallagher Lindsay, Don Lindsay, that he's got a team. They said that he's got a team and he's going to fight. And he's not going to fight for the rent control. He wants to continue to increase the rent in the city of Alameda. And he said that they have $500,000 they're going to put down, and then if they have to, their team will come up with $2 million. So they're fighting, and they want to keep increasing the rent in the city of Alameda, and they don't appreciate what's going on with City Hall and these rent control people that are trying to do something as far as controlling certain things with the rent. So Donald Lindsay with Gallagher Lindsay is fighting back.
Yeah.
He wrote a letter to City Hall about this. What do you think about that?
I think he's evil.
Why?
Because he doesn't care about the poor people, and a lot of people won't be able to be able to rent if they keep raising the rents. They'll have to move out.
Well, you know that the housing authorities has no problem with that, because every time the rent increases, they ask the federal government for more money to increase the federal funding for the federal housing. And you see that they get federal money from the feds, like HUD, if they allow a voucher to go in, like housing, you know, some kind of a housing authority, like Section 8 or low-income subsidized housing. Well, they ask the federal government for increase because the city has ultimately allowed a certain amount of money in the city of Alameda to increase the rent. So that's why they say, a lot of landlords, it doesn't bother me, I'm a Section 8 owner or I'm a low-income owner, and it's not going to affect me because we get our money from the feds. But it does affect us because the feds are going through this as well, and they're asking for more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Each time that the cities increase the rent, HUD has to pay that ultimate amount of money as well because they ask the money from the housing, from the federal government.
Right.
And we don't want the federal government to not last, you see. Because what happens if we use up all this money? What happens then? We don't have anything left.
Right.
And so people are out. So people that are on Social Security, low income, people that depend on government grants, they depend on these low subsidized housing. Because you see, there's not enough jobs here in the city of Alameda. Do you think there's a lot of jobs here in the city of Alameda? Why do you say that?
Well, there isn't.
What do you mean?
Anybody that gets hired, they have connections. They already know people to be able to get hired, or they won't have a job.
May I ask you a question, if you don't mind telling the audience? Have you applied here in your lifetime for a job?
Yes.
And what happened?
I was denied.
So you decided to stop, right?
Right.
So you're not the only one that has said that about looking for employment in the city of Alameda. Myself, I've looked for jobs. I'm a cosmetologist. I went to school and I've tried to apply for cosmetology work and I was denied every time. Even retail work, even housekeeping, nobody would hire me. I felt very bad. So I ultimately said, well, then I have to keep what I have, government grants, because I can't get a job. It's not that people are lazy. We just can't get a job. And ask us, were we born here in the United States?
People, there seems to be discrimination against the American people. The American people can't find work. They hire, all the foreigners get hired.
Are you an American citizen?
Yes.
Were you born in the United States?
Yes.
So was I. I was born here in the United States, although my family are immigrants, but my grandfather was a doctor here in Alameda. I want to let the audience know. So one of my relatives was a doctor. But, you know, I just look at myself now. I can't even have the American dream as an American citizen, owning the first-time home owner a house, because these greedy landlords won't allow it. They just keep increasing the rents. The mortgages is outrageous in the city of Alameda. And if you don't got a job, what can you do?
Right.
I'd like to ask you something else before we end this. What do you think about Puerto Rico?
I think a lot of the people are going to leave Puerto Rico and come here. They're
Why?
going to flee to the United States because there's no power there. They're going to seek refuge here.
And what do you think about that?
I'm not happy about it. Not at all.
And they're saying that's part of the United States.
Yes.
That Puerto Rico's the United States through the Constitution. What do you think about that? I mean, what do you think about them just coming in like that?
Well, they've been doing it for a long time. In the 60s, I understand, they were collecting welfare while they were living in their country.
Well, the thing that I'm really worried about in Puerto Rico is that people that are illegals, like from the borders, they could stay there for a certain amount of time and declare residency and say, we are residents of Puerto Rico, okay? And they could even obtain false information that they're residents from Puerto Rico. And they could come to the United States and come here without even going through the immigration. What do you think about that?
I fear that. I really am afraid of that. That's going to happen.
Well, you know what? They're totally forgetting about what Donald Trump wanted to do. He wanted to build a wall.
Yeah.
Why build a wall if Puerto Rico just come in the airport?
Exactly.
And these people could say, I'm Puerto Rican, and they're really not Puerto Rican. They're actually undocumented workers. They could say, well, I'm a Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And they could go live in Puerto Rico for a certain amount of time and then get documents that are falsified and come in the airports. You know, the airports, they don't even check if you're really a criminal, or they don't check your medical background or nothing. They just fly.
Right.
You think that is right?
No.
Don't you think they need a criminal background check?
Yes, I do.
And a medical examination before they come into this country?
Yes, I do.
What is Donald Trump doing about this?
I don't know. I hope he'll act.
Say something to the president. What do you want the president to do?
I want him to I want him to look into all these things we're talking about, and I want him to guard our border, the border of Puerto Rico, and see that all these people don't come in here illegally.
Or without criminal background checks.
Or without background checks.
And see if they're authentic, and to make sure that they're not terrorists or criminals that are coming in from Puerto Rico, or even smuggling drugs and coming to this country.
Right.
I hope we don't have a revolution here because of this.
Right.
Stand tall, walk free.